my honor to introduce to my left, George Sossenko. He was a veteran of the Durruti Colume, and he fought there when he was 16. And to my right, Fishman, who is now currently the secretary of the Abraham Lincoln Brigade, and also fought in the Spanish Civil War with them. So, without further... So without further ado, I'm going to pass the microphone to George Sossenko. And if any of you have any problem hearing, just raise your hand or something and I'll turn the volume up on the PA.
Thank you, Patrick, for this introduction. Comrade, as you heard already, I participated in the Spanish Civil War. Now, I would like to go a little bit back before the Spanish Civil War. After World War I, the proletariat was completely down, the capitalism was taking over, and the people who participated in World War I were completely demoralized because there was a lot of discipline during the war. And so we kids, 16 years old, we were more advanced than the 40 years veteran from the war. On the other side, Hitler, Mussolini was building up a force. The democracy was crumbling. The proletariat was completely down. The capitalism was winning the war because the gap among the rich and the poor was growing every day. We were young. We had a fist fighting in Paris, my city, and the right wing, left wing. When came the election in Spain in 1936, and the Popular Front won, it was like a star coming in the sky for us, giving us a hope that the democracy and our ideal wasn't dead yet. And we were jubilant, we were happy, because we were surrounded by fascism and complete indifference from the democracy. United States, France, England, they didn't want to get involved with Hitler and Mussolini. We were completely isolated. We were happy, but suddenly on July 19, 1936, Franco, the fascist, he came from Africa, where he was in Morocco, with the foreign legion, mercenary, and the selected soldier troops from Spain, invading Spain to destroy the Republic. They were taking town after town because Spain was a backward country at that time. 90% were analphabet. They didn't have a law, they didn't have any union, they didn't have any protection. The people didn't have lands. 70% of the lands belonged to the churches, and the rest of the land belonged to the rich people. When they didn't expect this fascism taking over one land after the next. And so we, the people living in other countries who have seen the star of the freedom of democracy growing, is losing. We lost our dream. The fascism was taking over. And so we decided to go to fight the fascism. It's a unique case in the world that from 54 countries, 35,000 volunteers went rushing to Spain to fight for the same idea, without any connection, without any appealing to each other, any propaganda. I was 16 years old, and I decided to fight also. I went to see the socialists and say, I want to fight in Paris, where I was living. And they say, how old are you? 16 years old. No, we don't want kids who will be crying on the front. We need soldiers and people already who have some experience. I went to see the communists. They said, no, kids, we don't want kids. I was desperate. I wanted to fight for the democracy. And somebody told me, why don't you go to see the anarchists? Okay, so he went in the Place de l'Opéra in Paris, in a shabby building at the second floor, it was sitting a guy with a big belly and a red nose with a red wine drinker. He said, "What do you want, comrade?" I said, "I want to go to fight against the fascism in Spain." "Okay, come the next week, we have caravan going to Spain." He didn't ask my age, my security. Now, I had, the first time I had a contact with anarchists, I was Marxist at the time, but not very decided. In 1934, some comrade, anarchist in Paris, told me, "You know, Makhno, he died. You know, anarchist Makhno, the Russian Makhno, and we have to go to the burial." And I assisted to the burial of Makhno, who was a legendary anarchist fighting in Russia. I met also over there Berkman, Alexander Berkman, from Russian descent, an American anarchist who came all over, also participated with 300 people at the Père Lachaise cemetery in Paris, where Makhno is buried. And so that was my first experience with the anarchists. I started reading about Bakunin, I started reading about all the anarchist movement, and I was seduced by him. When I went to Spain, and we stopped a group of 16 French volunteers who crossed the border. At that time, the border was still accessible, and we went to Puigcerdà. Puigcerdà, like all the part of the north, Catalonia and Aragon, was run by the anarchists. It was amazing. They had 3 factories with 300 to 500 workers in each. And that's the first time we have seen that the anarchism can succeed. There is a possibility to succeed, because too many people say anarchism is disorganization. No, anarchism is not disorganization. Anarchism is give the quality of life to everybody, opportunity, and we don't reject anybody. Everybody has the same opportunity, has the same value, the human value, not the money value, the human value. And so the owner of the factory ran away, they went to Franco. They established a committee for each one of the factory. They were run by them. They had also a monastery with 50 nuns. And so we dispatched one of Miliciano. At that time, before we were called Brigadista, it was Miliciano. And he came to the convent and he said, "Ladies, God is dead. And so this house doesn't belong to him anymore. You're free to go outside. And this is a beautiful building, and we will make a hospital of that. You get to work, and the nun who opened the door, she stayed with the Miliciano living with him. So that she liked it. Anyhow, after that, they were put in some order. They went to a brothel. There were about 30 prostitutes and 4 pimps with them. They said the same thing. "I know that the capitalism forced you to sell your body as to survive. Now you don't need to do that. You're a citizen like anybody else. Look for your job." The 4 pimps have been shot in 2 hours since we came over there. Yeah. We don't accept the exploitation of anybody. Anybody can own any other human being. We're against that. The money is not important for us. Prison, we don't need prison. We give a chance to everybody to start a new life. But if this person is committing crimes against the people, he will be shot or free. That was the first time I was front to the anarchist system.